shepherd stood, a belt of straw and ivy boots, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures mighty move, come live with me and be my love. And if these pleasures mighty move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swine shall dance and sing, for thy delight each my morning. The shepherd swine shall dance and sing, for thy delight each my morning. If these delights thy mind my move, then live with me and be my love. If these delights thy mind my move, then live with me and be my love.
Anne? Anne, are you in? Speak, Anne, if you hear. No sound, no word. Oh well, only to be expected. I am 24 hours late after all. An unexpected stop in Oxford. So, that's finished. Our revels now are ended. These our actors, as I told you, are, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, and so forth. It has been such a life. Fated, celebrated, appearing at court in front of His Majesty, and hers, before His Majesty. Queen Elizabeth, daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, ruling by divine right of kings, our first Protestant queen. Declared a bastard by the Pope. Catholics informed they don't have to obey her commands. Achievements in the arts and sciences, in exploration and philosophy, all in the face of the ever-watchful, hawk-eyed, puritanical court of Star Chamber. Threats from Spain defeated. Threats of Catholic regicide defeated. Threats of chaos following Her Majesty's airless, and I imagine hairless, demise, defeated by the succession of King James, James VI of Scotland, though the first that ever in England, such an honour name. Forgive me, it is our trick. We actors are so used to speaking other people's words that we quote or paraphrase by instinct. And in my case, our own words. It has been such a life. And what did I have by right, divine or otherwise? Oh yes, of course, my reputation. A bubble reputation as England's greatest playwright. That. It has been such a strain. The trouble was, as soon as it started, I was in it up to my neck. Stepped in so far, returning were as tedious as go or. No, tedious was not the word. Suicidal. There was no going back. Sorry, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Well, neither do I, really. A drink, that's what I need. Francis! I'm not an answer! Did you see that one? You have seen my plays, I take it. My works. Ben Jonson told us the other day that he has kept all his play scripts neatly bound together. He said, when I've added a few more to the collection, I'm going to have them bound and sold in a big folio volume. Ben Jonson, his works. Someone murmured, poor old Ben, he doesn't know the difference between work and play. Why don't I do the same? That's not really my place. I mean, what do you think they're worth it? Sorry, I don't mean they're not good, they are. In fact, they're the most marvellous set. Look, you'd have to forgive me. I've had a long journey, I'm not expressing myself with the proper caution. Of course you've seen my plays. Otherwise he wouldn't be here. You've seen my plays, and now you want to meet the man who wrote them. That's why you're... well... Stratford! Stratford! Stratford upon Avon. A place where a man can kick off his boots and drop the everlasting, never-ending, soul-destroying play acting. And I don't mean on the stage. That was the only place that would be anything near myself. That's dramatic irony, if you like. Except it wasn't. The audience were the ones that were in the dark. Oh, and sorry. You have to forgive me. I've had a long journey. This is a turning point in my life. No, it's not a turning point. It's the epilogue. Can an epilogue be a turning point? Probably not. Who cares? The point, turning or otherwise, is I have come back to the place where I was born. This is where I stay until I die. The beginning of the end. The time to make one's peace with God. And that's not easy. Unless you do it the same way as my father did it. Oh, there's another little secret. Hidden away in the rafters. A spiritual insurance policy. To make his peace with God. And with the world. How do I make my peace with the world? Well, I think I've done that, quite honestly. After all, if it hadn't been for me, but then, who's to know after we're all dead? Oh yes, of course, Father, I'm forgetting. God will know. And for the world, oh, so many lives hang on my silence. It's a responsibility. I didn't ask for this. I need that drink. Oh, no, sir. Home at last for good. A new place. I bought this house 16 years ago in 1597. 120 pounds it cost me. Second largest property in Stratford upon Avon. A home for Anne and Judith and Susanna until she married, and now finally for me. My father was a farmer. Oh yes, he did make gloves, but he also owned land on which he kept cattle and sheep, and he owned property for rent. And when I was born, he was mayor of Stratford. I was the third child, the eldest son in a brood of 8 eventually. Oh, this town was a wonderful place to spend one's childhood. And the countryside surrounding it was rich and fertile. Dick Field and I used to snare rabbits to take home for supper. We both went to the grammar school round the corner, where we learned to read and write in English and Latin and Greek. I was a poor scholar. The whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school, as I put it. Dick was always questioning things. He never accepted at face value the things he was taught at school. He had ideas about freedom of thought which were dangerous and exciting. We used to poach on the land of Sir Thomas Lucy, which got us a whipping more than once. One day, the Earl of Leicester's men came to perform a play in the yard of an inn. Dick and I went to hear it. The yard was full of people milling about in front of a wooden stage set up against one wall, with a door at either side. And the gallery was full of people eating and drinking. The whole place was a buzz of anticipation. Suddenly, a loud piece of music struck up on the drums, shawm and sackbut, and on came the actors, and soon the whole yard was ringing with the voice of James Burbage. I can't remember a thing the play was about, but I was entranced by the magic of it. On my way home, I thought, I'd like to do that. One day I might become an actor. From then on, whenever the players came, Dick and I went to hear them. Warwick's men, Worcesters, Strands, they all came to Stratford. Then one day, Dick told me he was leaving. I'm going to London, Will. I've been offered an apprenticeship with a printer. I'll be able to hear plays all the time there. They don't only perform in inn-yards and marketplaces, they have proper playhouses in London, the theatre and the curtain. Father fell into debt. I had to leave school and help him with his work. My forays onto Sir Thomas Lucy's land became less a boyish prank and more a serious quest for food. Father sold off land to pay his debts. He started to miss council meetings. On the day my brother Eddie was born, Father sent me to deliver some gloves to a family in Temple Grafton. The door was opened by a girl of about 16. She had dark hair, green eyes, and a beautiful smile. She told me her name was Anne. Next time there was a delivery to be made in the area, I volunteered for it. And soon I was visiting Anne twice or 3 times a week. We went for long walks in the fields and woods. I was 18 years old. It was the summer of 1583, and I was in love with Anne Whately. Father got involved in a drunken brawl, and he was ordered to attend court to apologise and guarantee to keep the peace for the future. He refused. He was fined £40. Things were going wrong for our family, and I didn't understand why. And then it happened. I lost my virginity. And with it, my youth. And with it, my freedom. Anne Hathaway of Shottery was 8 years older than me, an experienced woman. Oh, she knew what she was doing. Oh, don't misunderstand me. I was no unwilling participant. But, as I said, she knew exactly what she was doing. This was more than a roll in the hay for her. And I sensed this immediately. I felt I was in danger of losing something precious. Seized with a sense of urgency, I went straight over to Temple Grafton and asked Anne Whately to marry me. And she said yes. It was the beginning of October. From December the 2nd to January the 2nd is Advent, during which there can be no marriages. I had to move swiftly, but within a few weeks we had the necessary parental consent. And on the 27th of November, I was issued with a marriage license. With the license in my hand, at last I felt it could relax. I told my friends immediately, of course, and she told her friends, and my parents told theirs, and her parents told theirs, and that night 2 men from Shottery came knocking at the door. Anne Hathaway's insurance policy against a spinster's old age had paid its dividend. Following day, I was signing the register again, accompanied by these 2 gentlemen, who stood surety that I would go ahead with my marriage to Anne Hathaway. £40 to indemnify the bishop should Anne Whately assert her prior claim. They needn't worry. When her parents discovered that I got Anne Hathaway with child, they were glad their daughter had escaped the clutches of such a ne'er-do-well. So, I was married to the wrong Anne. Did I tell you she was 8 years older than me? Well, she still is. Let still the woman take an elder than herself. So wears she to him. So sways she level in her husband's heart. So she moved into our house. And 6 months later, Susanna was born. Suddenly, I was an adult with responsibilities. I worked hard in my father's business, trying to keep it afloat, but still he fell deeper into debt. He stopped going to council meetings altogether, and he was eventually dismissed from his post as alderman. It was becoming increasingly obvious that father was being persecuted because he was a... There's a problem here. How much do I tell you? To whom am I telling what I tell you? What am I doing here? Is it a soliloquy? Talking to myself? An audience? Hamlet tells all, but then so does the king. They neither of them believe that the audience will snitch. Do I tell them? If I tell them about the religion, what about the other thing, the citizenship? It's been easier keeping it secret at home, when others know the secret. But now, I'm alone, not even my wife knows the truth. Just the religion, not the other thing. Oh, sorry, I was just thinking. He was a Catholic, my father. So were my wife and her family. We all were. So, now you know. But I'm sorry, but you can't just change your religion overnight, not even at the Queen's command. Queen Elizabeth had once said she sought no windows into men's souls. Catholics were tolerated so long as they were discreet. But as the persecution of Catholics, as the plots against the Queen grew, so the persecution of Catholics increased, until eventually it became quite as serious as the persecution of Protestants had been under Mary. And in Stratford-upon-Avon, the chief persecutor was, guess who? Sir Thomas Lucy. He was appointed commissioner with inquisitorial rights to investigate the religious attitudes of us, the people of Stratford. In 1580, the saying of Mass had been banned. Anyone refusing to attend Protestant services paid a heavy fine. This was when Father started to miss council meetings. He'd begun to feel that he did not belong. The following year, the year before I was married, 2 Catholic Jesuit priests turned up from Rome, Campion and Parsons. They brought with them a piece of paper. The idea was that since we couldn't attend Mass, we signed and kept this piece of paper stating our allegiance to the true faith. They called it a spiritual testament. Others might call it a suicide note. I was the only member of the family who could read. I dutifully copied it out for my father. He made his mark and locked it away in a drawer. In 1583, soon after Susanna was born, a deranged Catholic, John Somerville, rode into London, brandishing arms and sworn to assassinate the Queen. He was captured and killed, but his associates escaped into Stratford. Sir Thomas Lucy was given the job of finding them. Father, Lucy's men are on the way. We must burn that document. Either it burns or we do. They're going from house to house searching for evidence. William, that document means more to me than my life. It is my hope of everlasting life. For God's sake, Father. Yes, William. For God's sake. We must hide it. Where? They might look under the floor, any? In the roof. I climbed up to the rafters and hid the document. Minutes later, Lucy's men arrived. After they'd gone, I said, I suppose we get it down again now. No. Fix the wattle securely. Make sure it's totally closed in. Well, why not burn it in that case? What's the point of it up there when no one can read it? Father looked at me sharply. God can read it, he said. You know, I swear he thought that God could read it more clearly in the roof than if we put it under the floor. It's in the rafters of the old house still. Hope God's enjoying it. My relationship with my wife was difficult. In the interest of a peaceful life, I tried to hide from myself as much as from her my resentment at losing Anne Waitley and being forced into a loveless marriage. I tried to make it work. I tried to make it less loveless. Worcester's men came to perform a play in Stratford. For the first time I went with my wife to see the play. It was a revenge play written by a new young actor who just joined their company, Edward Allen. He played a Danish prince who avenged his father's murder. He had a very powerful voice in the speeches where he was swearing, "Revenge!" But he could also lower it to express deep sentiment. That night, after we returned from the play, was the night the twins were conceived. They were born in February the following year, 1583. We named them after our friends Hamlet and Judith Sadler, who acted as godparents. 2 more mouths to feed. I resumed my coaching activities, but it was becoming increasingly obvious that I would feed my family better if I were to leave Stratford and find more lucrative work elsewhere. The time came when my departure became a necessity. I shot one of Lucy's deer. Gamekeepers spotted me trying to drag the carcass into the bushes. I was forced to abandon my booty and run, but I'd been spotted, identified, and I could by now expect the full weight of the law to come down on my head. I could have been hanged. I had to get away. I left Stratford determined that my children should never have to poach deer in order to eat. And so it was that in 1589 I arrived in Stratford the first time. The city was a chaos of shouts and smells and clattering. Everywhere I turned I saw incident. An overturned barrow, a screeching pig, a hollering chase of children. In the middle of all this I stood, travel-worn and bewildered. "Don't I know you?" said the voice. No, I don't think so. No, I'm sure I don't remember you. Warwickshire? Yes, I'm from Warwickshire. Whereabouts? Stratford upon Avon. Of course, Stratford! I knew your face as soon as I saw you. Now, your name. No, don't tell me. It's, John, is it? No, sorry. No, Will, of course. Why did I think it was John? Well, you might have been thinking of my father. John should be it. Of course, silly of me. Well, I'm so glad to see you again, Lord Shakespeare. You remember me, Ned Fletcher, of course. We have so much to talk about. I'll long be hearing about the folks back in Stratford. Your father, is he? Well, I'll tell you, why don't we join him? When did you join me for a drink in the tavern over the way? I was thirsty after my journey. The tavern was filled with traders of all kinds. We found ourselves at a table and Ned ordered 2 cups of ale. Behind Ned, the door opened and I saw 2 extraordinary men enter the tavern. One was a large, evil-looking man with tattoos covering both arms. He would have seemed of startling appearance without his smaller companion, but with it, this man's clothing was entirely of a bright green, a goose-turd green.